Chad came into my life at the end of 2020. And, at the time when he had come into my life, he was actually on a recovery journey. And so you get to see a side of them that a lot of the world doesn't necessarily get to see. And when they step into recovery, you remember a side of them that a lot of the world has never seen. I think like I said, we come from two very different perspectives, but we've been able to bring that together, and it's had its challenges, but we're making it work. And, one day, we hope to inspire other people. Like I said, some of these diagnoses are thrown around just like thank yous or, hellos. And so I guess I never really looked at myself as somebody that would struggle with something like that. And it wasn't until I went in and was willing to sit down with somebody.
Welcome to the Unfiltered Minds podcast, the only culturally diverse podcast where we discuss ways to destigmatize mental health, as well as promote self-seeking behaviors amongst our youth and family members struggling with ADHD or depression. Now, here's your host, Jane Levy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unfiltered Mind podcast. This is the platform where we discuss ways to destigmatize mental health, as well as promote self-help seeking behaviors amongst our youth and their family members. Today, we have a very special guest. She is an expert on helping people find their great factor. Welcome, Shannon. We're super excited to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's a pleasure. Please feel free to introduce yourself to our viewers.
Well, my name is Shauna Jenks, and as Jane said, I have a program called Find Your Grit Factor. I consider myself a grit coach, which is kind of a non-traditional term. You hear the terms life coach or success coach. I think I'm a combination of all of those, but really, I guess if we were to put a label on it, I'm a transformational coach, but I do that through grit. And that's really come from a lot of lived experience. I am no stranger to the difficulties that occur because of mental health issues, and have certainly struggled with a lot of adversities in my own life. But I found ways to gain mental toughness through those obstacles and adversities that I faced, and find opportunities that existed within them so that I really could just move through those obstacles, but still keep a hold of my goals and my aspirations. And although it hasn't been a completely smooth journey, there's been a lot of twists and turns, but at the end of the day, I've really ended at a place where I'm really happy with the trajectory of my life, and I'm really happy with the goals that I have achieved and the things that I've learned about myself and other people. So that's really what my entire platform is focused on. Particularly, I have a sense of, a big heart for women, and just truly helping them overcome adversity in their own life, working their way through it without losing sight of who they are and the goals that they want to achieve, and coming out on the other side with grit, confidence, and purpose.
I love that. Confident, right? When you have that confidence, you can do anything and achieve anything.
The term unstoppable, I think, is subjective, but I think when you are feeling confident in that moment, you truly are unstoppable, because you feel as though nothing can really stand in your way of you and what you're trying to aspire to achieve.
I 100% agree. I agree with that. And where are you currently residing at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in Southeast Idaho. I am in a quaint little town that's probably about an hour and a half from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. So pretty little pocket of the world.
So I was looking at your Facebook post. You initially wanted to move to Virginia, and then you had that little detour to Florida, right?
Actually, the goal was Florida. I was just going to go to Virginia first, and then had something pop up and made the decision to go to Florida. It was kind of a crazy ride, but I ended up spending 7 years in Florida, and then just recently, this past fall, relocated back to Idaho.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, because I saw that. I said, Virginia is for lovers. We would have loved to have you here and welcome you with open arms.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I spent 7 really great years in Florida, and honestly, I think that's kind of where I like to call Florida. It was my cleansing place. It's kind of the place that I got to go and just recalibrate and really find out who I was. So I have a lot of fondness towards Florida.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about you, the huge role you currently play in Chad's sobriety journey. How rewarding is that to you? And tell us who Chad is.
Yeah, so Chad came into my life at the end of 2020. And, at the time when he had come into my life, he was actually on a recovery journey. And so I got the privilege of getting to know him. He's actually an influencer himself. So I was introduced to him by a family member because they thought he was very inspirational. So they shared some of his posts with me and told me that I needed to meet him. And we actually were connected because one of his childhood friends growing up and my family member knew each other, and they thought that we would be a great connection for one another. So never in a million years thought that it would lead to anything, because he actually lived in Idaho at the time and I lived in Florida. Um, but we started talking, and it was like I had found my long lost best friend. So he was very open and transparent with me about his recovery journey and the struggles that he had had with addiction in the past. And, just even things that thinking areas that he's consistently working on to really rise above and stay on that journey of recovery. And, and he basically, like I said, he became my best friend. Well, we ended up developing a relationship, and we fell in love, and he actually just asked me to marry him on my birthday, which was June 12th. So that was really exciting, and it's really fun to be able to say that I'm marrying my best friend. He has, however, been on a road of recovery, and it's an interesting journey because I actually come from a background of people in my life living in a home with addicts, and so it's really interesting because we bring two very different perspectives. And I think one of the things that really connected us in the beginning is he really opened my eyes to what addiction looked like, just in terms of like explaining things to me and really understanding, how someone's mind works when they're dealing with those struggles. And it was such a beneficial perspective for me because it's one that I had really never seen from the other side. I'd always been on the opposite side of addiction, where I felt like I was always cleaning up, all the messes that were happening because of, somebody who was struggling with it. And as we, continued in our relationship, one thing, we talk about mental health, and, that's the foundation of your podcast. One thing that we have found that is really absolutely necessary, and I don't really see it changing for the foreseeable future. I think we just accept that it's probably a part of our journey and who we are. But because I grew up in a home of addicts, and because he, is an addict himself and is in recovery, the therapy has become a very big part of our relationship. So we both do individual therapy, and we have done couples therapy. We'll resume it at one point. We're kind of getting through our own personal things right now, but it's really helped us in communicating with one another. That's one thing that I never understood, even growing up in a home where I was living with addicts. I had a dad who was an alcoholic, and later siblings that struggled with addiction. And one thing that I never understood is I always thought that it was always their problem, placing blame on them. And of course, when somebody is in addiction, my experience has been they're not functioning as who they would normally function as. And so you get to see a side of them that a lot of the world doesn't necessarily get to see. And when they step into recovery, you remember a side of them that a lot of the world has never seen. And so one of the things that has been incredibly beneficial for me is, I think it's easy to say, well, of course the addict belongs in therapy. But I think if you've had any type of addiction that has had any impairment on your life, meaning that it has caused any type of disruption. Maybe you grew up in a home where addiction was present. Maybe you were or are married to somebody who struggles with addiction. I think it is very important that you understand how important your mental health is as well. Not just in coping with the situation, but learning how to set healthy boundaries and learning how to see things from a different perspective. And so that is one way that, I believe that I support him, is that I learn to communicate every week. I visit my therapist and I learn better ways for myself to communicate, because the reality of it is I'm not perfect either. I may not have struggled with, a drug or an alcohol addiction like he did, but I have certainly used coping mechanisms in my life. I have certainly done things to try to numb pain that I've been dealing with. They may not have been substance related, but I've used food in the past. I've used working in the past. So, there are a number of things that I think people can use as coping mechanisms that, they may seem healthy, but the reality of it is, if you're not dealing with the emotion behind it and the reason that you are trying to run away from something, ultimately you're not really dealing with your own mental health in the best capacity that you could. So I think just that has been incredibly helpful. And then also, just really understanding that he is in the process of recovery. And because I understand that, it changes my set of expectations. And so I just understand that, maybe our communication is going to look a little different. Maybe the things that we do, the places we frequent, the people we hang around, it's going to look a little different. And you know what? That's okay. Because as long as I'm aware of that, and I'm making that decision to be by that person's side, I think that's what really is making us successful in our relationship.
You know what? I was looking at your Facebook post and I just love the unconditional love you both display on social media. It just looks so real. And I can tell, I said, and you just mentioned something about therapy. You both going through therapy. I think it's very important also. If you're dating him, you understand where he's coming from.
100%. Honestly, just that component alone, I would promote therapy to anybody. If you've had any type of a traumatic struggle in your life, I think therapy is extremely valuable, because it's amazing how it shapes the way we communicate and the lens that we see life through. My situation is I'm with somebody in recovery, but I have family members that are also in recovery. And so it's given me the ability to communicate with them better as well. It's given me the ability to step out of the victim role. I can't speak for other people in the same situation, but for me, sometimes it's easy to say I'm the victim. I'm the one who, had these people in my life that were this way. But the reality of it is I've learned that I have a choice, and I just know that there are certain parameters that I need to work within, depending on who I choose to spend my time with. And so, it is. I think you said the key phrase, unconditional love. It really is about unconditional love, because none of us are perfect. And I doubt that any one of us would ever want to open up our closets fully to somebody and just let anybody walk inside and say, look around. Because, we all have things that we might be embarrassed about or ashamed about or afraid to share with the world or scared of people finding out, or, maybe somebody will realize we're not as great as we're stepping out in the world and acting like we are, or, maybe we're not perfect. Maybe we don't know all the answers. Maybe we have made mistakes in our past, but that's a part of the human experience and it's okay. And so I think for me, that's been one thing that, loving him has been such a blessing to me, not just because he's an incredible person, but because it has shown me how to be a better person, which has really been amazing.
And you do it so gracefully.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome anytime. And before we dive into that, I wanted to just to highlight that because I think you're doing a wonderful job. And I think we should have a part two with Chad on here and just talk to him. You agree?
Okay. I think that'd be great. I think like I said, we come from two very different perspectives, but we've been
Yes.
able to bring that together, and it's had its challenges, but we're making it work. And, one day, we hope to inspire other people,
Yeah.
regardless of whether addiction is the issue. I mean, couples have struggles, but I think what it comes down to is just communication and understanding.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about you. You were diagnosed with ADHD?
Yeah, just recently, actually, in November of last year.
As an adult. Wow.
I think I've struggled with it probably my entire life, but I officially got a formal diagnosis in November.
So what were your symptoms prior to your diagnosis that led to your diagnosis actually?
It's kind of sad. I think in our current day and age, a lot of these terms get thrown around. Like, you hear people all the time say, well, I think I have ADHD. People self-diagnose all the time, but the reality of it is there's some pretty significant symptoms that come along with those diagnoses. If you really look into them, they can be they can really impair your life. And, I think looking back, even as a small child in grade school, I can see areas where that really was playing itself out, but it was so hard to differentiate that from the dysfunction that I was seeing at home. And to me, I didn't know it was dysfunctional at the time. I thought it was normal because I didn't know anything different. So I didn't, I certainly didn't want to label myself as different because I already felt different because, the stories and experiences I heard from the other kids around me weren't what I was experiencing at home. And so I learned at a really early age to put on a pretty picture and to put on a facade and a pretty face. And as long as I could do that and show up with a smile, nobody would ever really know what the struggle was. But there was a point when I had struggled with so much adversity in my life that it kind of became unmanageable and a bit overwhelming. And so for me, the way that was playing itself out is, I have a tendency to get super laser focused on a task, especially to use it as a coping mechanism if I'm going through difficult times. And so I think I could definitely consider myself a workaholic if I allow myself to do that, because I'll get so laser focused on something, I can literally tunnel vision everything else out and, forget time management. I mean, I've had to really learn how to focus in on my day and learn to utilize my time effectively because I can be busy all day long and absolutely accomplish nothing. I am a master of that. And so, I think that is where when I finally did get diagnosed, I had adversity happening in my life. And I was just feeling, I mean, this is I can't think of a better analogy, but I really felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Like I couldn't hone in and focus on anything and my emotions were all over the place. And so, when I finally went in, I told her, everyone jokes with me. My kids have joked with me for years. My sibling has joked with me for years. Oh, you have ADHD. But, like I said, some of these diagnoses are thrown around, just like thank yous or, hellos. And so, I guess I never really looked at myself as somebody that would struggle with something like that. And it wasn't until I went in and was willing to sit down with somebody and finally rip off the Band-Aid and rip off the mask and say, I'm going to let you see me for who I am, that she was able to go through and, realize, okay, yeah, I think you've got some things here that you may be dealing with that are, there's some logical reasons why you think the way you think or behave the way you behave. And I remember I had seen counselors before in my life, but I had never had somebody sit down and make such a quick diagnosis after us going through a process. And I felt so comfortable with her. I think that's one thing about therapy. You really do have to find somebody that you click with. And so, I apologize. My dog is barking, so hopefully you can't hear her.
That's okay. I have one upstairs as well.
But, I think that, it was refreshing. Some people don't like that stigma attached to them. They don't want that label. But for me, it was like, oh my gosh, there's finally an explanation for why I do A, B, and C. And not that it changes anything to know it, but now that I know it, there's probably some tools I can find to help me deal with these things a little bit better. And so for me, that's what it's done. And it's really been a blessing.
So let me ask you, when you said did you go to your primary care physician, a psychologist, a therapist? How did you get diagnosed?
No, I went to a therapist, actually. I went to a therapist. Because like I said, I was dealing with some pretty major life adversity at the time. And, I couldn't get out of the rut that I was in. And so, what ended up going to see the therapist for one thing led to me finding out there's actually some logical, explanations for why you're feeling the way you're feeling and why for me and the way that I looked at the world, some of these things had been like, a continuous cycle for a lot of different years in my life. And so again, like I said, it was a blessing for me.
It
Uh,
is.
but I think, yeah, I mean, but I think if you're somebody that struggles with focusing or paying attention or you get easily agitated, things like that, those are all symptoms that I encountered and I have for a very long, I mean, ever since I can remember. So, I mean, it certainly is worth your time to go and at least talk to somebody.
Well, I'm glad you got those diagnoses so that you can actually have somebody to help you with those executive function skills and also provide you with some tools that's actually
Yes.
going to help
Yeah.
you with your daily lives.
100. I mean, the worst thing you can do is show up to build a house without tools to make it, right? I
Yes.
mean, that's really, and that's what I felt like I spent my whole life doing. I had all of the materials. I just didn't have the tools to put it all together. And now that's what receiving these diagnoses have done for me. And then for me, I started medication just actually recently in the last couple of months for my ADHD, and it's made a world of difference.
Yeah, because also 35% of patients who are diagnosed with ADHD does not respond well to medication. My son was diagnosed with ADHD. Medication help him manage those symptoms a bit, but he also does therapy to help him with those executive function skills as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, it worked out, and then you're doing therapy, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I never took ADHD medication. I had tried an antidepressant at one point in my life, but I wasn't doing therapy in conjunction with it, and I
Mm-hmm.
hated it. I did not like the way it made me feel, and I was given that by my physician because of the symptoms I was describing,
Mm-hmm.
and now years later, I learned those actually were ADHD related. So I think that it really pays to have somebody that is an expert in that particular field in mental health to help you kind of go through what it is that you're feeling and the things that you're experiencing so that you can get an accurate diagnosis. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's, for me, like taking an antidepressant it did absolutely nothing. It made me feel worse. Um, and I'm thankful that I wish I had done it sooner, honestly. I wish I had gone to see somebody sooner and get this diagnosed and taken care of because it is made a tremendous difference in just my outlook.
Yeah, and you can accomplish more.
Yeah. I can accomplish more. I can stay more focused.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that go along with that.
Yeah.
When you're able to stay focused and accomplish things, your confidence goes up. You're able to step out, greater in your goal. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a domino effect.
That's the goal. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. What structures do you currently have or tools do you currently have in place to help you manage those executive function skills, time management, prioritization?
No, that's great. So I live by my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I personally use an Outlook calendar. There's a lot of different tools out there that you can use, but some people prefer putting something in writing. I love my calendar because I can set times and timers and reminders and things that are recurring. I can set those up, and then I can put notes in the description, and I can email myself stuff. So for me, that's really helped me just stay on target with my day to know what I have coming up. Because I mean, I can remember, even into my early 20s, I was the person who they would tell me something started a half an hour after or before the time it actually started because I was always so late. And our world just doesn't it doesn't allow for that. And so, especially now with technology, things just move too quickly. So I've had to really learn, I've had to pay attention to myself, things like how quickly can I get moving? How quickly does it take me, to do my hair? How fast can I do my hair and my makeup? I know that I am one of those people that I can't walk out of the house unless the house is tidied up. So I have to give myself an extra 15 minutes to tidy up the house, because
Mm-hmm.
if I don't do that, I'm going to be late for whatever it is that I'm going to do. And I've just been really, strict with myself at sticking to that. Um, and if something comes up, I put it in my calendar immediately. I don't wait. I don't wait and take the appointment card and then go sit in my car or say I'll get it when I get home. I do it standing at the doctor's office, or, when I get the email. I do that stuff right away, because if I don't, it's very difficult for me to even remember little things like I have to go pick up so and so at 3 o'clock. I have to go pick up one of my kids at 3 o'clock. Like, I have to schedule that stuff. And, you know, it seems silly, and I've gotten a lot better at not having to be so strict against my calendar. But in the beginning, when I started to really hone in on this, that's exactly what I had to do. And it really helped me become more regimented in my schedule. There's still things I'm not great at. I would love to eat dinner by 7 o'clock every night. I'm probably never going to be that parent. Um, I'm always running by the seat of my pants, but the point is that now I do it, in at least some sort of an organized, chaotic manner.
Yeah.
So, I can make things happen, when they need to happen. And that's been really important. And the other thing that I do, because for me, at least, my mind never stops going, ever. And so I have ideas coming all the time. So I actually have Microsoft Office, and I use OneNote a lot, and I will pull up OneNote when I'm out, whatever I'm doing. If I have something that needs to be like, my son will call me and say he's out of shampoo. I will pull up my OneNote and I'll put stuff like that in it, because if I don't do it, I won't remember. And then I think the other thing is the people in my life. I don't know if other moms experience this, but I think sometimes as a parent and a significant other or a spouse, sometimes, especially as women, people can look to you to be kind of like the owner of the schedule, or the owner of the organization of what. Yeah. So I've learned to delegate, especially with my kids. And, if they have appointments or things like that,
Mm-hmm.
if they need something for school, I actually tell them that it's their responsibility to remind me of that, and they need to put it in their own calendars. Because I can't do it all. I can't keep track of everyone else's life and my life. So, obviously that doesn't work as well when kids are little, but I did actually start utilizing that system with my kids pretty early on. By the time they were in middle school, I was making them responsible for some of these things on their own. And it's helped them, as they've grown, to really be able to effectively manage time in their own life. So those are some of the things that I do personally.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's teaching them at a very early age to be responsible for their own.
Yeah. Yes.
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 You did mention, Shauna, at the beginning, you talked about using food as escape. And nutrition can play an important role in just managing ADHD symptoms. But again, you have done well with your weight loss. I think you lost a lot of weight. You share that on Facebook. How have you been able to manage that?
Well, I've lost and gained and lost and gained, and I'm actually on the losing journey again.
Yeah.
Weight's something I've struggled with ever since I was little.
Me too.
I don't
You
know. That
look
one's a never
great.
ending. Thank you. As far as food as a coping mechanism and also helping manage ADHD, I first, just in full transparency, I had a lap band surgery done in 2009, and actually in January of 2023 just had the band removed, and was going to have a gastric sleeve done, because I have had so many ups and downs with my weight.
Mm-hmm.
But they were unable to do that because of some damage to my stomach. So we're giving that time to heal. In the meantime, I'm doing therapy. I'm working on myself. I think I continue to work on my diet, but I think some of the things that I really try hard to do is, I think two of the biggest things is I try to stay away from fast food, and I try to stay away from processed food. So if it comes in a box, or it comes from a drive-through, I generally try to steer clear of it. Another thing that I do is if it's not in the middle of the aisles or in the main areas of the store, I like, you've got the produce section, you've got the meat section, and you've got like dairy and what have you. If it's not in those aisles, I pretty much try to stay away from it. And that's just something I've trained myself to do, because I found that when I eat more processed foods, I eat more sugar, I'm just putting more junk in my body. My performance as a person just starts to go down. I start to run low on energy, which changes my mood and my behavior. And, for me, I think that's where my anxiety really starts to kick up. And then that just creates a whole host of different issues that are really unnecessary. So I've just found that when I'm trying, when being diligent and I'm paying attention to drinking water, getting enough restful sleep, and trying to eat a relatively well-balanced diet, I just perform better as a person. So, in the same tone, I've had to learn to do that so that I don't turn to food as a coping mechanism, because growing up, that was kind of a way that we got. I mean, food was you ate when you were sad, you ate when you were happy, you ate when you were celebrating. And so it was kind of like the catch-all for every emotion you might be feeling. And so even into my adult life, that's something that stuck with me. So I've just tried to make it so that I'm making better choices, but it's something I have to be mindful of every single day. It's a constant struggle.
And actually, you said it, staying outside of the aisles, right? It's the stuff that's in the aisles are the processed food, and the fresh food are always outside of the aisle. And I can testify to that too. When I eat bad, I can feel it mentally. I'm drained and my energy is low. But when I eat healthier, I'm just confident and I'm just happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our bodies, I don't think they were designed to, if you look at the ingredients of a lot of the stuff that we eat, it's got stuff in it you can't even pronounce the names of.
Yeah.
And now they're doing bioengineered food. And I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak to whether that's good or bad. I'm sure there's a lot of good to it. Mm-hmm. But, I just know the closer to something to its original form that you can eat it, the better it's going to be for you. That's kind of been my rule of thumb.
I agree.
And so it's really what I've tried to stick with. Again, not always successful, but I've tried. And when, I still come up with ways to have treats and things like that. Just the other day, my future stepson actually sent me a recipe for a Greek yogurt, and it was a Greek yogurt blueberry cheesecake, and he made it with protein powder. And it's not like getting a really indulgent, delicious, rich New York cheesecake, but it satisfied the craving, and it was a lot healthier. And people who are nutrition experts, you're not going to make significant long-term shifts if you are making drastic sacrifices. And so you have to find little ways to still feel like you're getting to indulge.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do.
Yeah. Cold turkey is not the way, because have you noticed people who has a New Year resolution to lose weight, they will lose the weight and gain it all back and even more?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I've done that.
Yeah. A diet doesn't work. I believe in lifestyle changes.
It's 100% life. All of it. It's so funny. I don't think that diet and exercise are separate from mental health. I personally think it all goes hand in hand. And I think that actually goes hand in hand with your financial health, your spiritual health, your relationship health. It's all, synonymous with one another. I don't think that they're separate things. And when you start to really apply yourself in one area, if you will take the time to sit down and start looking at the other areas, you can see where you can make little improvements and tweaks, and you can become, better as a whole. And so I think it is really taking a holistic look at yourself. I know, even in my program, working with women, part of it is, I have the 5 pillars of balance. And to me, that's faith, family, finances, fitness, and fun. And I think that if you kind of focus on those 5 areas in your life, and you set boundaries so that anything else that comes in, if anything else that comes your way is going to impair any one of those, then maybe you need to take a second look at whether or not it's really good to be in your life. And so that's kind of just a rule, a standard that I follow, but that's kind of how I feel about just the whole, health in general. I think it's all around. I don't think it's one area or another.
I agree 100%. So you've been doing the coaching business for a while now. Any words of encouragement for somebody who is actually helping somebody who is going through any mental illness? Any words of encouragement for them?
Someone who's helping someone that's going through mental health issues.
Yes.
I think you just have to recognize that you're only capable as much as you're educated to be. I'm not a therapist. I am not educated in that area. So there are certain things that, for example, my fiance deals with that it's out of my jurisdiction. I can't help him. The best that I can do is just be a support system to him. And I can let him know that it's okay to reach out to the appropriate people. So, he's actively involved in AA, and that's really beneficial to him because he has a sponsor that he can go to. So I think just understanding that I may not always be the best solution for him to talk to. And I'm okay with that because there may be somebody that has better advice or, an educated viewpoint that really can help him. And I think the second component of that is just understanding that, if there are steps that somebody in your life is having to take because they are working through mental health issues, give them the freedom to do that and don't take it personally.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, it can be really hard when you know somebody one way to watch them make changes in their life. And even though it's an improvement for them, it's difficult for you to see that change occur. Even when it's positive, because maybe sometimes things look a little bit different than they used to before they started making, those changes. And I think it's just really important to recognize, like, if you truly unconditionally love the person, let them have the freedom to explore that and let them have the freedom to really step into their best self and utilize whatever healthy tools are available to them to do so. And if you find yourself in a position where, maybe you are feeling uncomfortable or, jealous, or maybe you're feeling like you're not the go-to person anymore, or maybe they're making changes and you feel like you're being left behind, that's an opportunity for you to improve as a person. And it's really awesome when you get to do that with somebody. So that would be my words of advice.
Oh, thank you so much. That was amazing, Shannon. We are super excited that you were able to join us here today. Well, that was our last questions. Our viewers and our listeners will like to know how to reach you for your coaching services. Can you provide your contact information for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to send a complimentary gift to individuals. They can reach me. They can visit my website at gritgirltribe.com, or they can reach out to me via email, info@gritgirltribe.com. And I would love for them to reach out, and I can provide them with a complimentary gift of my 7 ways to crush fear. It's just a way for you to kind of start the journey of mental toughness and grit, and just some really easy tactical and practical steps that you can implement in your life starting today that will kind of help you start to overcome some of the fears that happen when you are facing adversity and trying to work your way through it.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for your time, Shannon. Don't hang up. I'll come and talk to you.
Thank you.
To our viewers, we want to say thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you next week on another episode. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Unfiltered Minds podcast. The If you love what you're learning on our podcast, we ask that you please join the Unfiltered Minds community by subscribing and sharing our podcast on YouTube, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Our dedicated team of ADHD coaches are committed to making a positive impact on the lives of our listeners. Through our thought-provoking podcast, we offer valuable resources, PBT training for ADHD, and a supportive community that understands the journey of mental health challenges. Also, you can visit our website at theunfilteredminds.com, where you can sign up to be a guest on our podcast, as well as sign up for our 8-week parent behavior training course on ADHD.